Hello and welcome. I'm David with Pacific Coast Electric Heating and Air, and this is Electricians Corner. We're located in San Jose, California. We're licensed residential electricians. Today we're going to answer a lot of very common electrical questions online, as well as learn a little bit more about our techs, a little bit more about their experience and opinions on things out there in the world. So, Andrew, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name's Andrew. I've been in the trade for 5 years now, continuing online classes as well as continuing training here on site. We do this for about an hour and a half every day prior to going to servicing homes. So I'm happy to be here, glad to be here. Go ahead, Eric.
I'm Eric. I graduated trade school in 2009. Been with Pacific Coast for ballpark 5 years, and great company.
Yeah. My name is Joshua Glover. I'm a third generation electrician. I've had the pleasure of having one master to the next share their love and joy for the trade with me, and I'm following in their footsteps and really taking in on this trade as well.
Awesome. Yeah, these three employees right here are some of our best guys, all company, and obviously we chose them to be up here because of that, but also their expertise. So, Andrew, what types of homes do we generally service?
And, we service all homes in the Greater Bay Area. We don't discriminate. It could be early 1900s up to brand new construction. We want to make sure that, your electrical system is on par and providing you with the best efficiency. And safety is our number one concern. So.
Always. Eric, I know that you work in a lot of our commercial properties, commercial accounts. Tell us a little bit more about what that's like.
It's a lot different than the typical residential service. You're working with 277, 480 volts, and a lot of dedicated circuitry for machinery. Definitely a different beast, but at the end of the day, you got to know residential to step up to commercial and really be an expert in the trade.
We're going to move on to some of the online questions now, some things that people will Google or look up on YouTube. If you have any additional questions you'd like to ask the panel, go ahead and put them down below in the comments. We'd love to get back to you, okay?
Right down over there.
Yeah. Number one question, or one of the questions we get is, why do my lights flicker? So, in the electrical world, residential, flickering lights generally happen at a connection point. There's thousands of connections in the home. It also happen from power fluctuations and a lot of other things. It's one of the more complicated problems to actually troubleshoot and figure out. Josh, what are some of the things that could be happening in addition to what I mentioned?
Yeah, some of the most common ones that we do see are loose connections inside your wiring. For everywhere that you look, every light, every switch, every outlet, there's on average 6 connections that are made behind there for the electrical, where you have wiring coming in and wiring going back out. The danger is that if any of those start going bad, they get really hot, and that heat breaks down the system. The most common side effect for lighting is flickering. You can also have issues where it'll dim down or even go out entirely. And that unfortunately leads to more times than not burning in your system.
This is a very common question. I actually get this a lot in the field. It could be as simple as, compatibility between dimmer switches and lights. A lot of people get these handyman to come in here and just install, not really thinking about the overall project. And, this could be a very simple, but it can also be a very complex thing. There's a lot of different avenues to look at, which we are definitely trained to look at every angle. So,
yeah, not only is it being a nuisance, fluctuating light qualities and things, it could also be a potential safety hazard. As Josh and Andrew have mentioned, electrical burns when it gets too hot, and a symptom of that is flickering. So it's something you want to get checked out immediately if it's happening. Another question we get very often is my house grounded? So grounding is one of the more technical parts of our trade. In North America, grounding is mandatory. It's a safety wire that's installed in addition to your hots, neutrals, and just more than the function of the wiring, it's also for safety. It's an extra conductor. One of the other common questions we get is my house grounded? Grounding is something to do in North America as well as some other countries. It's generally associated with the safety wire. You'll hear that term, the third prong on your third prong outlets. What do homeowners need to know about grounding, and what are some things to look for, Josh?
Yeah, the main thing that you need to know about grounding is it's absolutely critical to the safety of your system. With it, it's not something that you'll notice on a day-to-day occurrence, but it is going to come into some serious play when your wiring has big failure. For most of your day-to-day usage, you have fluctuations in your power, you have a lot of things that will break down your system, and once it actually breaks down, it leads to some pretty big catastrophes more times than not. You have issues where you can cause some pretty big fires in the home, and you also have issues that can lead to potential electrocution. This truly is where the grounding system shines. This is when it kicks in and allows for an additional way for your protections to be able to catch the issues at hand. Without it, you're not really going to have any safety net for your electrical system in the home. And at the end of the day, this is a dangerous commodity to have. Part of the really big issue that we see is that older wiring, the ones that start having these large catastrophic issues, is the type of wire that doesn't have the grounding in the home. And so it becomes incredibly important that you have it done correctly. You make sure you have a licensed electrician be the one to evaluate it. You make sure you look into the credentials of anyone that's evaluating your system, because it does take a lot of professional training to know how to do it correctly, or even on how to update an old system.
Yeah, you did mention that old wiring generally isn't grounded, and being in the service, residential, we get 10, 15 calls a day, and we definitely see our fair share of electrical fires. Electrical safety is generally not on the public's mind all the time, but for us, we see it every day, and in a lot of cases, it is these older homes, these older wirings, these older electrical panels, but not always. Sometimes we do see it in newer homes. So, Eric, tell me why that happens sometimes.
So there's a lot of misconceptions about getting an electrical panel installed. If you don't have grounding and bonding in place and you get newer breakers that are installed, you're hurting your system at the end of the day. The grounding is what really allows the breakers to really function and turn off in the event that something goes wrong. So more commonly, you think I'd show up to a house that's built 5 years ago. Somebody did a sloppy job of installing the panel, didn't update the grounding, and their newer technology breakers they aren't even doing their job because it's missing a key component in making it function.
Interesting. And how come that's something that wasn't caught? A lot of homeowners will ask us that when we show, how come the last guy didn't tell me about that? How come the inspector didn't tell me about that? Andrew, why do you think that happens a lot?
So, in my professional opinion, I think it's essentially because of, could be lack of training, it could be lack of experience, it could be that they just underbid the job and they cut corners. It happens a lot in this trade, unfortunately, and the reason we charge what we charge is we know what goes into the scope of the work, and we understand that you have to be detailed in every aspect of it, because it really boils down to your safety. So that's the biggest concern for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of talking about cutting corners and things, and the lack of professionalism in some companies. Some people turn to DIY, do it yourself. Us being men in the trade, we definitely support things like that. I'm in my own home. I fix my own garbage disposal. I'm very proud of myself. But when it comes to electricity, we do have a certain bias. We are electricians, but most people do come to the conclusion that electrical is something that should be done by the pros. Some people don't know when the line is. Can I replace my own switches and outlets? Can I replace my own breakers? Can I replace my own wiring, my own light fixtures? In your guys' opinion, where is the line drawn?
So, really, there's a lot that can go wrong with the simple installation. And the big issue is in California, any contractor is liable for a year after an install to warranty that their products are safe and installed correctly. A lot of times a simple installation can go wrong, and that failure doesn't happen until 5-10 years down the road. So it's really important that you have somebody who's going to back their work, because most of these failures don't happen immediately. It's down the road, unexpectedly, middle of the night. You just never know.
That's true.
Yeah, even on the more simple installations like an outlet or a switch, there's several ways that you can do it. The easiest methods are the worst methods for longevity. They're the worst for electrical safety. When we look at what actually goes into doing it the proper way to make it last longer, this also takes a long time and a lot of practice to make sure you get it correctly. So unless you've gone through and done several hundred of them, I wouldn't say they're even close to our standards or any professional electrician standards should be. And so really it comes down to, what are you willing to risk in your home? What are you not willing to risk? My professional opinion is that you should always have a licensed electrician do the work, because it's small details that can lead to the biggest issues. It's like they say, chain's only as strong as its weakest link. And so if you have a weak link in your electrical system, the whole thing is now in danger.
We do meet a lot of new clients. We're in a very high population area. We do have, of course, our client base that we've been working for years, but a lot of our people we meet every day are new. And the first time they've even had an electrician in their home. We get that all the time. I've never had anyone look at my system before, or I did, 20 years ago, or, my father-in-law did a remodel and that was about it. So we get a question a lot about electrical inspections. When is it time to inspect the home? What are some recommendations you guys would have for people who have never had an electrician in their home?
It's probably a good time to have somebody. I mean, electrical it's a lot like your health. It's fine until it isn't. It's pretty cost efficient to have somebody out to do maintenance and check on things too. So there's really no good reason to not bring somebody out when it's very affordable to do so.
Yeah, I would have to add that it's there's a huge misconception thinking that everything lasts forever when it comes to electrical. Everything has an expiration date. It's always good to, just like you would get your vehicle tuned up or checked on, to repeatedly have the same kind of I want to say behaviors, going towards your home. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a huge investment that's making you money, but it's also keeps you safe, and you may want to pass it on to your children. So there's a lot of misunderstandings when it comes to electrical systems. My opinion is, if you have an electrician there, you should have your equipment inspected. It just should be habit.
Yeah, that's something I used to get a lot in the field is, my wiring has been working for 40 years. Why has this all of a sudden happening? And there's a whole array of answers to that question generally, but simply put, Josh, what would you say is the number one thing?
Well, to step back for just a second, anytime you notice an issue on the surface, you need to understand that's the last symptom of a very big problem. Anytime your lights flicker, anytime an outlet goes out, anytime you have breakers tripping when they shouldn't be, this is the last thing that should be happening from a long list of very big problems. The most common of these issues really comes down to systems breaking down. As Andrew was saying, everything has an expiration date, and electrical is definitely no different. When we consider the different components that go into our technologies and our electronics that protect the system, all of it has a way that it can fail. And at any of the points where you have lots of heat being built up, you have lots of insulating material degrading and breaking down, you have a lot of wiring that's becoming tempered and becoming brittle, all of these can lead to some very big fire issues in the meantime. And so it's not something you even want to wait till it comes to the point where you notice it. And the most common definitely is age. The most common definitely is demand that you put on the home. If you have any type of large entertainment systems, if you use microwaves, if you have pool equipment, EV chargers, solar, pretty much anything that draws a significant amount of power or adds a significant amount of power, that puts a lot of stress on your system, and you'll start noticing some pretty big issues out of it.
Yeah, typically speaking, when we do find damage or people without power, it's an issue that's been happening for years. So kind of to the point of what we're talking about, having a safety inspection. Our recommendation here at PC is once a year. You should have a licensed professional come look at the home. And why we say once a year, at this point in time, like we've hinted to, the technology is increasing quite rapidly. Electric vehicles are very popular in this area, solar panels. When you have these additions to the system, you want to make sure, like before and after, you have someone check in, make sure it's operating as it's supposed to be. Next question we get a lot is, how can I save money on my electricity bill? So power consumption is a world topic at the moment, but especially again in our area, where in California the people's power bills are pretty ridiculous, guys. So electricity's rate is, paying more for your power bill than your car nowadays. So guys, what are some tips, tricks that we can tell our clients and people in the area?
A simple one is lighting. A lot of people have the old fluorescent lighting, incandescent lighting, which tends to get really hot, also generates an immense amount of heat, but also pulls a lot of wattage. And you get a combination of these throughout the home, you're going to be looking at some significant higher bills. LED is generally the way to go. We do always let our clients know if they're looking to get a fixture out to put in an LED light. Something that'll last longer, less maintenance to deal with, not to mention will also warranty and back up with 100% guarantee written. So that's one easy step you can take at your homes.
Yeah, lighting's definitely more power than you think is used in your
Big
lighting.
factor.
Absolutely.
What else do we got, guys?
Another quick way we can add some generated efficiency for your home is if instead of running your full AC system to do the initial cooling of the home, there are some more efficient methods you can use in pairing with it. Our favorite is to have a whole house fan installed for you at home. It's a way that you can quickly flush out all of that hot air that sits in the house, that seeps down from your attic, that just can't escape. You flush that all away and it no longer radiates back into the house. So now your AC system doesn't have to cool extremely hot air back down to an even lower temperature than you want in the home, so it can start cooling the house off.
Yeah, two product manufacturers that we support here, Airscape and Quiet Cool. Go ahead and Google those guys. We'll probably include links in the description. Great products. You run them in tandem with your air conditioner, it save you quite a bit in electricity bill. Another question we get often is, when do I need more power? And sometimes more specifically, when do I need 200 amps? In our area, again, homes that are original to the area sometimes have 60 amp services. Most homes, though, new construction have 100 or greater. When is it time to get to 125? When is it time to go to 200? What are some things to consider?
This topic is it's really black and white. If you have a 1960s home and you haven't changed your panel, that panel is designed for the electrical use of 1960s. We're here 50 years later, 60 years later. If you're running on that same system, you're putting your house in jeopardy, and you are definitely underpowered with the technology today.
So if it's underpowered, what is supposed to happen? If I'm drawing too much power, the circuit breaker is supposed to kick off, right?
They're supposed to. There's a lot of issues with specific brands. Zinsco, Federal Pacific Electric, those brands of panels are known fire hazards, and they're all over the place. The breakers don't turn off when they're supposed to. A wire can only handle so much electricity based off the size, and if your breaker isn't working, those wires are burning. It's guaranteed.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And even so, if you do have a more modern system that's less than 15 years old, you can still have an issue where if you're becoming close to the threshold of power you have, so let's say you only have 125 amps available to the home, if you're continuously getting close to 80, 90, 100 amps, maybe every day or two, you're going to start breaking that system down faster than it elsewise should. These are the type of stresses that we don't like to see in the house. We always want to see that you have at least double the capacity of what you're using, because that's how you make sure you're going to get the best lifespan out of it. That's how you make sure you're going to be in the lowest risk of
Reducing the
issues.
wear and tear. If you will.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, future-proof.
How long are these electrical panels supposed to last?
30 years,
30 years.
around that. Most people that I go to their house, they're past that limit.
Yeah.
It's just because how do you know unless you're talking to an electrician? A lot of people are bringing out electricians for the first time. Some electricians don't even speak to it because they don't have the licensing to do the panels.
That's an interesting point. So in our state, if you're not a licensed electrician, you can't do more than $700 value worth of work. And if you do, you can actually get sued. So
Right.
It's an interesting point. Okay, so the next question or next thing we want to talk about is if you see kind of right here in the front of the table, we have two sets of circuit breakers. One looks very different than the other. One is a Bryant 1980s, 1990s circuit breaker model, and one is a modern 2000s arc fault circuit breaker. So one thing that we support in this company a lot is doing things to code, and that means when we come into your home, we're going to be talking to you about the lack of code ready items in your home. Arc fault circuit breakers have been coded in the NEC National Electrical Code since 2001. This is a product that has saved countless amounts of lives. It's caught countless amounts of mistakes from electricians. And to their fault, a lot of guys don't like to install them because it's going to catch the problem with their work. Not to mention if you have incompatible equipment, it's going to trip. If you have lighting that's not compatible with the dimmer, another annoyance to a lot of electricians. But this is something that is serious, something that can add to the efficiency in the home. The arc fault circuit breaker is designed to reduce electrical fires, period. Arcing is the mechanism that causes fires. It's when connections get loose, connections get overloaded, get too warm. The wiring actually starts to separate, and then the electricity will actually jump, and that's called an arc. So there's two types of arcs that the arc fault circuit breaker can protect: series arc and a parallel arc. We won't get into that right now, but guys, what can you tell me about arc fault breakers? What are things you're talking to our clients about? And the advantages.
The bulk of people seem to have the overcurrent breakers. This is the first style of breaker that was invented. It detects if you're pulling too much electricity. You have a 20 amp breaker, you pull 25 amps, it shuts off to protect the wiring, right? So the arc faults, they're superior in the fact that they still have that mechanism that detects if you're using too much electricity. If you notice the size difference between the two breakers, the second half detects if you are having arcs going on in the system. That's why they're really valuable, because just replacing the panel doesn't fix your whole system.
Yeah.
Bang for buck, these are the best ways to protect your home. They're said to protect against about 75% of all electrical fires. Now that's really big, that's really impressive, so I'll say it again. 75%, 3/4 of all electrical fires you can have in the home are protected by the circuit breaker. It's extremely important to have in your system. Every electrician you have in your home should be the ones bringing it up to you. If they don't, it might be a red sign for it. But the issue is it does require a modern system to have. It's something that you have to most times update your panel if you do have any type of service issues, which is why you have an electrician there. So it does come with a little bit of baggage associated, but it's still definitely the number one way you want to protect your house, even if you do have to do the additional work.
Yeah, it's kind of sad because newer homes will have them, but really the homes that desperately need them are the older homes.
Exactly.
Kind of one last question. So the 3 bids thing. So obviously we're a business. We're in competitive bidding with our market, our competitors. Being a consumer, a homeowner, when you get those 3 bids, how do you make a decision? So, is it price? Is it their guarantees and warranties? Is it their nice white uniforms? What are some things that you guys could tell or help advise the population out there?
I've got to butt in on this one. So, as a contractor, you're required for a year to guarantee your products. Anybody who's guaranteeing their products for just a year, there's something that's missing in it. So you as a consumer, you really need to make sure that the person that's installing it is installing it to last, because there's so many shortcuts that can be taken. That's the biggest thing for me. If you're shopping around, you got to make sure somebody's going to stand behind their word.
So when the client asks you, hey, do we need a permit for this? What's the right answer?
Yeah. It's
yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always.
Is it always the answer?
Yeah.
It is, and it's becoming increasingly so. In a lot of the cities, it's becoming to the point that anytime you add any type of wiring at all to the home, it's considered infrastructure and requires licensing and permitting to do. It's becoming so restricted that in even some of the cities, the one that we majority of the time service, San Jose, you're not even allowed to change out a light fixture anymore without having a permit. And the big issue is that it's something that when you do electrical wrong or incorrectly, or you cut a corner, it leads to some serious repercussions. And the cities, at the end of the day, the whole idea of permitting is just to make sure you're going to be safe, just to try and make sure you're getting the right contractor out there. So that way, at least the initial installation is going to be adequate for you.
Yeah. So we have, of course, their guarantees and warranties. We have, is the work being inspected or not? Andrew, what else is kind of on the table when making a decision?
One of the great things that I love about working with this company also is the fact that we do present multiple options. We don't just look at the issue at hand, but we also give you other options to better future-proof. We see things a little differently. Being electricians, we can see different angles, so we want to bring these options up to you as a consumer and make sure you're well informed at the end of the day, whether you go with option 1 or option 3 or 2, doesn't matter. We want to be able to provide you with different angles so you can see how things work and get the best of what you're paying for, essentially.
Yeah. And one more thing I would like to say is that we do have a lot of empathy for any homeowners out there trying to make sure they're having the right contractor do their job for them. The big difficulty that we see when we're out in the field is that no one really knows who's going to do the right job for them. It's easy to believe that everyone associated in the trade is going to do right by them. But the hard reality is that the trades get a bad name for a very good reason. Yeah. There's a lot of guys out there that don't have the right professional training. There's a lot of guys out there that just don't know better, or even, sorry to say, purposely do things in a not so full way. And when you're looking at it as someone that doesn't know fully everything that goes into it, which is why you're hiring someone most of the times, you have to put a lot of trust into them. And this is something we totally want to empathize with you about. It's very scary coming into it. You have a lot of people telling you a lot of times things that are different. So at the end of the day, the best way to make sure you have the right electrician for you is to go through, look at peer review. You can even contact cities and ask for any type of information on the electrical companies y'all have out there. Most states have ways you can look up licensing. Most city inspectors will tell you recommendations if you do ask them.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to tell you outright, so you do need to be the ones to make the phone call. But talk to the guys that really do the work. Anyone that is in position of authority from the city, most of the time they should be giving you accurate information.
That's a good piece of advice, actually.
One other thing I want to throw in too is when you're getting estimates, is it just an estimate or are you getting an upfront price too? A lot of guys try to get their foot in the door and just say $1,500, and they're including all the code requirements too. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, there's kind of two ways of contractors will present a job to a client. They'll do traditional time and material, pay me $85, $100 an hour. I'm going to charge you for the material of the job. And then there's kind of this more modern approach, one that our company does. We call it straightforward pricing or flat rate pricing, where you go to Starbucks, you know how much the coffee is before they make it. Kind of that's train of thought. And we find that's the most honest way of doing work, because if we get into the job and we bid it improperly, we're going to be the ones to pay that price, not you. I give you an hourly rate. I can take my time. I can make mistakes. I'm getting paid. So those are things you want to consider. Do you want to hire that guy per hour? Or do you want to know what you're going to pay before the job even starts? Okay, so that's all we have time for, guys. Go ahead and if we didn't answer a question you have yourself, go ahead and put it down below in the comments. We'd love to answer back to you. We're in California. We're at NEC 2014, so if you're an electrician asking questions, that's kind of the guidelines we're following. Joshua's read entire 2017 NEC, so if you have questions about that or the differences,
Be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Eric has been working in service a long time. He's a more experienced troubleshooter. If you have a question about Novatube or some older style wiring, you don't know what it is, send us a picture. We'd love to look at it. Andrew is expert at Tesla Powerwalls, solar panel installations, Tesla EVC chargers. It doesn't have to be Tesla, it can be any kind of electric vehicle. So if you have any questions, again, put them down below in the comments. Have a great day. San Jose, California, or Pacific Coast Electric Heating and Air.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye, guys.